Tukia te papa kia hikara tā tātou ahi. He ahi tūtata, he ahi whita, he ahi tautau i ngā kaupapa kei te pai kōrero o Party People. Nau mai rā ki te ahi kāroa o ngā take whai tikanga o te wā, nā te Puna tongarewa a Irirangi te Motu i Utu. Kia ora, ko mihi ngā rangi Forbes ahau. Welcome to Party People e hoa mā. It's Tuesday, the 22nd of November. It's 101 days of lockdown here in Tāmaki, Makaurau. Joining me in the bunker are political super spreaders, Tau Hinari and Shane Te Pau. Tēnā kōrua.
Kia ora.
Ka pai. Well, the traffic light system kicks in about 10 days. We're all moving there as a country. The government has created toolkits and verifier apps and helping people to businesses particularly to work their way to 105 new cases yesterday, bouncing around there, hundreds of whānau in self-isolation and around the country, particularly in Tāmaki, Makaurau. So, if you had to self-isolate, do you reckon you're prepared, Shane?
Yeah, I'm prepared, and that's because we live in a big house, lots of kai and resources, but if you're a whānau of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in Otara, Māngere, very different matter, and I follow the good Dr. Jensen's advice, get to hospital.
Yeah, but what are you prepared with? What do you think's important?
Kai, the ability to get more food online, the ability to pay for it, the ability to have water, the ability to have a little bit of time out when you need it. And, that's just the reality of a middle-class existence. Lots of whānau don't have that, and I'm really concerned about them.
Yeah, when you think, given Māori are half of all infections at the moment, should we be seeing some kind of messaging targeted at Māori and Pasifika whānau for what's in the kit, kind of like the civil emergency stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the old days you used to have the first aid kit and they were given out, licensing trusts used to give them out. I think we need to sort of do something like that. We need to have little kits available. These are for the Panadol and whatever else. And I mean, Māori communities at the moment are relying heavily on the Māori providers, not relying on the Ministry of Health because they're bloody useless. They just haven't done their job. Who's done the job is the Pacific Island whono, the Māori community, Papakura Marae, all of those sorts of organisations. They're keeping us alive.
Yeah, do you agree? I mean, the Ministry of Health got a lot on their hands at the moment.
A lot on their hands, but just hand over the information, hand over the putia, we'll get the job done. Because here's the reality: is that if you live in South Auckland, and I don't want to talk hyperbole or scaremongering, but the reality is that I think Tau is right. Let's just front foot it. If you live in a large whānau or large ainga, the chances of COVID coming to your whare are pretty high. Let's equip them now. Let's do it. Let's be proactive.
We're starting to hear the stories of whānau who have got COVID, who've got a whole lot of tamariki with them that are really unwell and not feeling like they can reach out. What is the message that we've been heard? Dr. Rawiri Jensen's actually kindly fed into our program. And what's he saying, Tau?
He's saying, if in doubt, there is no doubt. Get on the phone, ring an ambulance, get to the hospital straight away. I worry that there are so many of people isolating at home, but these people who are isolating at home are with 9 other people. How is that possible? We don't want to overload the hospitals. That's a given. But hey, I think that if you are feeling unwell and you cannot look after yourself or your whānau, get onto the phone, 111, please come and pick me up, send an ambulance. Yeah,
Dr. Rawiri Jensen's also saying that I think it's about 5 or 6 of the recent deaths have been Māori, whānau Māori. What's happening?
This because the vaccinations suppress the efficacy of COVID. You're less likely to get really sick, you're less likely to die, but if you're unvaccinated, the chances of you getting unwell, the chances you get dying are much higher. And what we're seeing is the effects of a poor vaccination rollout program when it comes to our people.
And we're so young, so we've been behind the 8 ball, so we're just doing catch up, still behind.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I read just a couple of days ago about what's happening in Africa, and there hasn't been the expected explosion of COVID over there to do with a whole range of of things, like Ebola, their war on Ebola, their other viral infections that they've had. So what is interesting is that I think, like I said last week, I think Māori's saving grace will be the fact that there are so many young Māoris. And I still believe that, because the disease, it looks like the disease is attacking the older people.
Yeah.
But what does harm in long-term younger people is what they call long COVID and the long-term effects. We had Dr. Tuhoi, which, what a great name, very sensible chap. I don't know if he has whakapapa, but very sensible chap. Long COVID, 6 months and beyond. And even if we get over this pandemic, we're going to feel the long-term effects in terms of pain for the pandemic, etc., for a long, long time.
The Māori Party released a COVID strategy last week, doesn't support the current mandates. You don't either. What's the solution?
Well, there is no solution. I mean, you can't... look what's happening in Austria, where the unvaccinated are being treated like some sort of lepers, like some sort of... You might as well put a V...
But how do you get people to participate?
But you can't. Look,
well, then how do you protect...
The vast majority of New Zealand, nearly 90%, are vaccinated or are going to be vaccinated. I wouldn't quibble.
Of the eligible New Zealanders that can be.
Well,
so how do you not
12.
overwhelm the ICUs?
Well, we're not going to. I mean, there are people out there that will not get the vaccination.
Just quickly.
Yeah. Well, just remember, with mandates, they're limited mandates. Frontline health workers, teachers,
but not police,
border workers, not police,
police,
but they are reasonably limited.
But not police.
Yeah, I understand it. I'm saying yes, they should, and I don't know why they're not.
Okay, cool. Let's move on. Another poll this week. Reid Research News Hub found Labour 42, Nats 26-ish, and worth mentioning Te Pāti Māori back to 2.1. So Debbie Ngāri Wapaka would be back in there, but the real story in that poll came in the story of Tova O'Brien's last night on the leadership battle. So poll asked if it was down to Judith Collins or Simon Bridges, who would you pick, and the results that Maniapoto Kaupoi could make a comeback. He's got the endorsement with 40% compared to Collins, who's just on 23%, 36% didn't know. Shane, ko hoki mai a Simon, ki te whakataita, is he back in the race?
No, well, he might be back in the race, and, I think it's the difference between, choose your poison, arsenic or cyanide. But remember, when you look at those numbers, those numbers are amongst the 26%. The big issue is that National hasn't made any ground against this government, in fact, lost ground against this government since the last election. So that's the real thing. Here's the other thing, is that there's not going to be an orderly transition if there is a leadership change. Judith Collins will fight to the bitter ends, and she will burn the house down before she hands over the keys to the whare.
Any insights?
She'll bring down the shed, because that's all there is at the moment. I mean, look, when you have a fight, you in politics, you've got to garner enough from the centre to see you through. They're not even near the centre. If you put National and ACT together, that's only 30-odd%. Let's not kid ourselves. So the big battle between left and right is still going the left's way.
Yeah, so Shane, you said, it's not even a race, but what is the other race? What's the other option?
I think the other option is that they're going to just hang on to what they've got and see what the new year brings them. They will be hoping that there will be a summer of chaos and they'll get some traction. But even if you get that, you've got to have an alternative message, have an alternative pathway forward. And I don't think the National Party has got that. And also remember, in terms of Simon, last time he was the leader, his negatives were the lowest ever since polls were taken by national pollsters themselves. So I don't see a way out for them in the near future, actually.
So who are the contenders, Tau? You've got an insight into the party?
Oh, yeah.
Surely.
Well, from the people that I've spoken to, around the caucus table, I might add, yes, there will be a leadership change. They do not know when, because they're freaking out about whether they should do it before Christmas or after. And the fact of the matter is, Judith Collins is gone. By Christmas, who knows?
See, that's what you get on Party People.
Yeah.
You get all the breaking news with you two.
Yeah. You heard it here first.
And I know that no one's throwing any extra names up, but, when you look at the party, knowing the values of the National Party, who do you like?
Oh, it's hard for me because I think they all look the same. You know, they speak the same. There's no different policies. There's no.
Well, do you agree with Shane that Simon Bridges is not really a contender?
Yeah, no. I mean, you know, Simon, a nice fella, he had his shot, and we might as well just leave it in the past. Personally, I think Nicola Willis is somebody who could develop into a centre-right, progressive, liberal, because you've got to get the 10%, the 15% in the centre. You can rely on your core support, maybe, but you've got to win the centre, and she's about the only one that could.
Was it a mistake for them to let Paula Bennett go? Would she be valuable now?
Oh, no. I mean, Paula, me, Simon, we all had our go, and now it's time to look forward and move on.
Do you think, Shane?
Yeah, no, you have to have a generational shift, particularly when you've been in government so long. So Paula wasn't the answer, and I don't think Paula would have been much different to Judith Collins. She's changed her political hue because she's probably interested in the mayoralty, but she would have pretty much stuck to the game plan that Judith
Who have they got then?
Oh, that's the problem, and here's the problem with Miss Willis from Wellington, who I quite like. The Liberals don't have control of the party. The fundamentalists, the Pentecostals, have control of their party, and this isn't religious. This isn't religious bashing.
It's just talk from a staunch Labour.
No. Well, see, the other thing too, I actually didn't vote Green Labour last election. I voted for I didn't. I voted for the Greens.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I did. I voted for the Greens because we're in a climate crisis and we need to try and fix this and leave.
But you drove a big gas guzzler.
Better. Yeah, not as big as yours. So the thing is...
You need an electric car. If you're going to vote Greens, you need an electric car.
You know what? My next car's going to be electric.
Did you know that Ford are making F-150 Lightning? It's an electric ute, and it will also be a mobile generator. So other cars can get their
technology.
I'm going to come back. Finish your point about the Pentecostal church, though.
Oh no, I just think that the Liberals don't have control of the party, so it's not going to come from that group. But what they are doing, and I've heard this, Toe's inside information is absolutely right, but I've heard directly from people inside the caucus, is that they're doing their best to at least keep Bridges out.
Kapai, let's go to another race. This one's the Wellington Mayoralty race. We've got a wahine Māori from Taranaki, Whakapapa. She's thrown her hat in the ring. Tori Whānau. She's an ex-Green staff, chief of staff. First of all, Toe, how important is the Wellington Mayoralty race in terms of politics?
Well, I think it's hugely important because there are issues down in Wellington and our capital city that need to be sorted out: public transport, public housing, all those sorts of things. But here's the thing: doesn't Wellington? They've already got 2 Māori councillors. We've got out of 21, and he's a Māori, Samoan Māori. We have no candidate who is a Māori for the mayoralty, and Wellington have got a Māori woman who's going to be a candidate for the mayor, the Tori Whānau. I think it's wonderful. I think Wellington are the Liberals in all of this. We're so backward in Tāmaki, we can't see it. New Zealand, in fact, the world's largest Polynesian Pacific Island Māori community in the world. And what do we get? Pākehās.
So, in terms, just to finish off there, your experience at Parliament, how influential is the Wellington Council and, the leadership there?
Oh, I think it is influential because it's the Beltway. It's the 9 to 5 happening in Wellington.
What could a Tori Whānau, Tamitha Paul, and there's one third.
Gilday.
Yeah, Gilday. What could they do if they were, grouped together?
I think their lobbying power increases, and they get. It's only a 5-minute walk to Parliament, to Jacinda's office.
And they know how to get in the doors.
Yeah.
She wants to tackle infrastructure, water issues, crumbling buildings. She wants to rebuild a sense of community and whanaungatanga.
Yeah, I've got my popcorn ready because there's going to be a really interesting race on there. Not only will Tori Whānau, the former chief of staff, that is actually quite a good builder of coalitions. She's had that experience. But I predict that Paul Eagle will run. He's currently a member of Parliament for Rongotai. That's the word on the street. Hasn't been confirmed yet, so I think we're going to see a scrap between those two. So that'll be very interesting. And then someone from the right. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a heck of a race, and it's going to be one to watch.
Do you reckon Paul Eagle would give his seat up?
Yeah, well, he'd have to, yeah.
No, I mean, this is the question I've always asked. If you want to go run for mayor, jump off the MP salary.
Well, he's got a dilemma, because the election was only, just over a year ago, and I understand, I wasn't around, but I understand that one of the questions he was asked is, aren't you interested in me? And he said, no, I'll see out my term. So I think what he'll probably say is, well, our city's in crisis, I've got a bigger responsibility, but it's a dilemma that he'll face. And the other thing is that why wouldn't the simple argument is, hey, you're doing okay where you are, you've got a job to do, let's electorate and let's get 2 for the price of 1.
But will they? But do politicians think like that?
No, they don't. There's going to be a bun fight, and you're going to have an independent Green and an independent Labour person stand. And it hasn't been confirmed, but I think it's on the cards.
There was a story by Bryce Edwards recently talking about the revolving door of political lobbyists. Whānau being one of them. Obviously, she's working as she was working with the Greens. Now she's working in a communications company with some other former political advisors. Is this how it works in Wellington? Is it okay?
Yeah, there's bigger lobbyists and there are smaller lobbyists, and there are firms that they've got a card that they walk into Parliament. They still have to sign in, but they have the run of the place. I personally, I can't see anything wrong with it. Just
what about you, Shane? Does it change the kind of the potential of the kind of politicians we get?
Well, you know what, I don't mind if they're upfront about it and they say, I'm the PR person or I work in communications, but we're the person who might work for a particular company, but actually they're the full-time lobbyists, and it's sort of like a hidden door. At least with the people who work in PR companies and communication companies, at least we know what they are.
Is there any equity to those tickets?
Pardon?
Any equity to those cards through the door?
No,
I mean, who chooses?
No, there probably isn't. Well, you've got to have an inside edge, and you've got to have. It's actually not really about access to the ministers. You know what? And the important access is officials and people who work in the minister's office, because that's where you can have some influence in terms of policy. Yeah,
Edwards makes a point that switching from the beehive jobs into roles where you use your political relationships and information would be illegal in other countries. But do you think we need stricter rules?
Yeah, like where? I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what the real examples are, because the reality is, even if you have strong constraints, you can get around it. And I'd rather people just be open about it. If you work for communications company or PR company, so be it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's like me. If somebody asks me, could you talk to your cousin Penny? I mean, that's the same. It's not on the same level, but it is basically the same. And Shane and I have a good relationship with most MPs. And if somebody asks us to sort of push the barrow, we will.
You should set up a company then, Tau.
Oh, yeah, but I don't want to be...
charge every 6 minutes.
I don't want to be paid. I don't want to be paid for the mates and companionship that I have with some of the people down Wellington.
But the reality is, lots of people, as we know, take advantage of those relationships and earn a lot of money, and sometimes for very little or no outcome. It's just it happens.
Oh, but maybe I changed my mind.
But my experience that I've had is that you can only do so much, and then I don't think that the level of corruption that exists in other countries does exist in New Zealand.
I don't think that New Zealand's lobbyists have as much influence as Bryce or anybody else thinks they do.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to talk about supermarkets this week. This week, we're talking kai in the supermarkets. There's 2 big players in this market, and it's often referred to as the supermarket duopoly. So Woolworths Foodstuffs, who are reported to be making healthy profits. Tau, how much for a block of cheese, do you reckon?
How much is a block of cheese?
Yeah.
Around about $15-16.
That's right. And in Australia, I think the comparison is, much less, probably more around $10. So in July, Countdown spokesperson told Newshub, when they did the story, that it's because the cost of the product, the cost of shipping, transport, distribution, and also GST. I mean, is that a fair answer?
Oh, it's one of the answers that everybody rolls out when they put their prices up. you know, the supply chain, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, the poor mug that has to go to Countdown, New World and wherever, they're the ones that pay for it. But here's the thing. We've got 2. There is a duopoly. What happens if we have 3? What do you call that?
Yeah.
A triopoly?
I don't know what you call it, but you'd
Probably not even a word.
call it some greater level of competition, and competition tend to lower the prices down. There is an argument, transport, all that sort of thing. If you're buying a block of smelly cheese from France, but you're talking about cheese that's made in and around Aotearoa or in and around Auckland, so there aren't those transport costs. That's just humbug.
It's like why is milk dearer in this country than it is in Australia?
Yeah. So the Commerce Commission is, Newsroom also published a story recently saying the Commerce Commission is looking at whether Foodstuffs and Woolworths should be required to divest some of their business to break that stranglehold into the grocery market. Would you agree?
Yeah, because it's not just about having duopolies, it's about how they control the small cheese manufacturer in terms of what they charge for commissions and all that, and how they place on it. It's really a system that works against the best interests of the consumer and the best interests of small business. It's just not fair.
Not only do they own the supermarkets, but they also own the distribution. And that's when you get into some sort of conflict of interest, and that's when the issue of duopoly comes about. Not just because they are there, but they own each and every individual part of the operation, right from start to go.
And I think, this is a perfect opportunity to turn our $40 billion Māori economy and growing Māori economy into a direct provider of goods and services.
Yeah, this is the next question, is that actually, as COVID has been a great example of how Māori can create food chains, but they can't have food sovereignty yet because the access...
Because you can't break in.
That's right. So is it a treaty issue?
It is a treaty issue, but also I wouldn't want to see just construct in terms of let's just open another supermarket chain. Let's look at other ways of deliveries. Let's look at online systems.
Yes.
Let's look at bolstering our markets, because we know if we live in Tamaki Makaurau and we want to get good quality vegetables that are affordable, we don't go to the local supermarket, we go to the flea market on Saturday, and I think we can do all of that. Just a little bit more sophistication.
Go to the Chinese outlets, the Asian outlets. They're great.
Yeah, but in terms of buying bulk food, it's been difficult for some of these providers, who are taking kai packages, and also it's hard to source good kai for some of those packages, and we hear the stories of people saying, got dropped off way too many toilet rolls and not enough fruit and veggies and hardly any meat, and then other people got too much, so it's been hard. And so there was a kōrero recently about Ngāti Kuri up north who's also been providing kai for them, and it's been a real struggle for them to source kai.
Yeah, so. and it is essentially because we don't own the distribution network or the infrastructure. That's key to Countdown. It's key to Woolworths. It's key to New World and Pack and Save.
Yeah, and it's been no surprise that over the last 5 years, folks that are newly introduced to the rich list come from the supermarkets. No surprise. But here's the other thing: is what we've got to do is look. I don't want market intervention to this level, because I don't think it will work in terms of saying, okay, this is the most you can charge for milk, bread, etc. Right? You've got to have lower alternatives, but we've got to have some real intervention if the supermarket and the supermarket duopolies do not behave themselves. So we've got to have a level of intervention.
I think a good example was used in 2007, which the Commerce Commission split apart, was Telecom, and so it had to become Spark and then Chorus, and so that was about the distribution, the retail and the provider, and of course the third. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think that when did 2 degrees come in, and so Māori got a bit of a share of the pie. Perhaps that's an example, should Māori have a share of the food distribution in this country?
But it's the one thing that will drop prices and put the fear of God into those progressive and whoever else owns the supermarket chains, is the distribution network. There should be a rule. You can't own both of them. You either work in one, but not both. what that does is open it up to the opportunity for Māori to become involved in the distribution.
But it's not even a true duopoly. You know, if you live in Kawerau, you know, there's only one supermarket and the next one is 20 kilometres away. So in many of our towns, it's a monopoly.
I need your tweet of the week.
My tweet of the week. My tweet of the week is the tweeter of the week, the tweeter of the month, the tweeter of 2021, Tina Nata. Every time she tweets something, she hits it on the head. And her tweet in terms of getting people vaccinated, but she had to go and do a couple of karaoke numbers before they would be vaccinated, works. And
there'd be no vaccination if I was on the karaoke.
And it's funny and it's timely and we need it.
Mine is about a person who's been vilified around the world for quite a number of years. But he sparked hopes of the great comeback in sports. And that was Tiger Woods yesterday, actually hitting the ball 9 months after that horrific accident. I can't wait till he gets back. I can't wait till he shoves it up the establishment. I can't wait for him to win another 2 or 3 majors and become the greatest golfer that the world has ever seen.
Ka pai. Did you read it?
Tiger Woods has sparked hopes of the greatest comeback in sports since Tiger Woods a few years ago.
Ka pai. What should we be looking for this week in politics?
I think more rumblings within the National Party. We'll see how Auckland reopens in terms of being able to get your haircut or your spit and shine toe. And also, I think that people are a little bit over 2021. We're going to start rolling out and hopefully have a few
bougie.
parties.
How bougie is the opening of a barber's and a hairdresser's, for God's sake?
We'll tell the rest of us what we should be looking out for.
Looking after yourself. Staying home. Don't go away for Christmas like some other people.
I wrote a reckon. When it comes to public life, there's a perception from some that politicians, councillors, even entertainers become fair game, that you can say what you want about them with no repercussions. So lately I've seen the rise of attack on women, the Prime Minister, Nanaia Mahuta, Marama Davison, Debbie Ngāre-Wapaka, Marnie Dunlop, others like Tova O'Brien, Paula Bennett used to get it all the time. The list goes on. And I've had my fair share, but not like that, and I'm pretty good at ignoring it. But this week, let's be better. Nō reira, kei ngā ahika o tēnā whānau, o tēnā hapu, o tēnā kāinga. Ki konei tukia anō ai te papa kia tuku i te ahi pū kauri o Pāri people ki tō ahi manawa. Ki reira, whita ai a haere ake nei au a mihi ngarangi ka heke. Kia kite anō tātou i a tātou anō, haere rā. That's us Pāri peeps. A big mihi to New Zealand On Air's Public Interest Journalism Fund for supporting this kaupapa.